I found the house by accident. It wasn't on a rental site. There was no listing, no photos, no reviews. Just a hand-painted sign half buried in grass at the edge of a dirt road, room for rent, quiet, clean, cheap. I'd been on the island for a few months by then, drifting from bungalow to guest house, staying nowhere too long. I told myself I liked the freedom, but in truth, I was getting tired of packing up every 2 weeks and learning new Wi-Fi passwords. I wanted stillness. Something rooted. Even if just for a while. The woman who answered the door was older, with silver hair tied up in a knot and a linen dress that fluttered like paper in the breeze. She introduced herself as Mara. Her voice was soft, like sand spilling through fingers. "Stay as long as you want," she said. "No contracts. Just kindness." The house was small, 1 story, tucked into a hill just above the shoreline. From the front porch, I could see the ocean through a tangle of palm leaves and hibiscus. There were birds I didn't know the names of, and every morning, their songs stitched through the window screens like thread. Inside, the place was plain. Woven rugs on concrete floors. White curtains that billowed even when the air was still. A bookshelf full of old paperbacks, spines sun-bleached and cracked. But one thing stood out. There were no clocks. Not in the kitchen, not beside the bed. Not even a microwave with glowing red numbers. No phone on the wall. No ticking, no digital blinking, no reminders that time was moving. At first, it unsettled me. For years, I'd lived by time. Alarms, calendars, appointments, countdowns. Every hour accounted for, tracked, squeezed for productivity. Even on vacation, I'd find myself checking the time compulsively, as if I was afraid it might run out before I had a chance to rest. But here, there was nothing to check. At some point, I stopped wearing my watch. Then I stopped carrying my phone. Days began to blur. Not in a bad way, but in the way a river moves, steady and wide, without hard edges. I'd wake up when the light changed. I'd eat when I was hungry. I'd sleep when the air cooled and the frogs began to sing. Mara called it living by the light. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, but she was always there. Sweeping the porch, watering the garden, stirring something fragrant on the stove. Her rhythm was quiet but constant, like the tide. I once asked how long she'd lived in the house. She shrugged. "I stopped counting years a long time ago," she said. "They don't grow here." I liked that. In the afternoons, I'd walk to the cove below the house. The sand was darker there, almost golden, and the rocks were warm and smooth. I started bringing a notebook with me, not to journal or make to-do lists, but just to listen. To write what I heard. Sometimes the wind sounded like whispers. Sometimes the waves sounded like breathing. Once, a crab scuttled across my foot and paused, as if curious. I told it I was doing fine. There were no mirrors in the house either. At least, not full ones. Just a piece of broken glass nailed to the back of the door, small and clouded. Enough to make sure I hadn't grown a second head, but not enough to obsess over my appearance. And somehow, the less I looked at myself, the more I felt myself. Like peeling off layers of expectation and finding something softer underneath. I stopped worrying about the way my hair looked in the wind. I stopped checking my emails. I didn't even notice the tan lines forming on my shoulders until I caught my reflection in the water one day. It's strange, the things we unlearn when given the space. Mara never asked me why I was there. She didn't pry. But one night, we sat together on the porch, drinking warm tea from chipped mugs. The stars were brighter than usual, scattered across the sky like someone had spilled sugar on black velvet. "I used to be someone else," I said quietly. "Back home." She smiled, not surprised. "Most people were," she said. "Until they weren't." I told her about my job. About the life I'd left behind. The apartment with gray walls, the glass desk, the meetings that left me hollow. I told her I wasn't running away, exactly, but I wasn't sure I knew how to stay, either. She nodded slowly. Some houses teach you how to stay, she said. This is one of them. Over the weeks, I began to notice things. How the sun slanted through the window at different angles depending on the time of day. How the wind changed direction around the full moon. How the plants leaned toward the porch like they were listening. The house wasn't just still. It was aware. Not haunted, not magical, just present. And in that presence, I started to feel whole. I cooked my own meals again. Simple food. Rice with coconut. Breadfruit with lime. I sat in silence. I stopped reaching for noise. And the strangest part? I didn't miss anything. Not the news. Not the scrolling. Not even the music. The quiet was music enough. One morning, I found a letter on the porch, held down by a smooth white shell. It was from Mara. I'm going away for a while, it read. Don't know when I'll be back. The house is yours for now. Treat it well. No explanation. No forwarding address. Just a signature in looping handwriting that looked like it belonged to a different century. And just like that, she was gone. For a while, I wondered if she'd ever existed. If maybe the house had dreamed her up for my sake. But I kept living there, kept tending to the garden, kept sitting on the porch in the evenings with my tea. I began to write more. Not for an audience. Not to post. Just to write. Poems. Thoughts. Fragments of memory. It was like tuning into a signal I'd forgotten how to hear. Some mornings, I'd wake up with whole sentences in my head, like the island was speaking through me. Time passed, or maybe it didn't. I lost track. One day, I heard a knock on the porch rail. A traveler, wet from the rain, asking if I knew of any rooms nearby. I almost said no. But then I looked at the house, at the glowing windows and warm kitchen and the bowl of fruit on the counter. I remembered Mara's soft voice and her quiet trust. I opened the door. There's room here, I said. No contracts. Just kindness. I never saw Mara again. But sometimes, when the breeze moves just right through the trees, I hear her voice in the leaves. Some houses teach you how to stay. And some stories never really end.